Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar of Wisdom Innovation Partners. Today, we'll be introducing our fund as well as two of our potential portfolio companies and hope to answer some of the questions that you might have. Yes, so this will be our agenda for today. The origin story of Wisdom Partners, presentations from Proteocyte and Decon7 are two potential portfolio companies, our individual track records of Revere Partners and global health impact networks and funds, and as well as what does the investment opportunity look like. Over to you, Jeremy.
Is that Jeremy or is that me, Sheetal?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. You got it. My apologies.
Okay, great. Well, I'd like to welcome everyone that's on to this webinar. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. I mean, you can see, from my titles that I kind of sit on both sides of the fence throughout my career from a clinical as well as an innovation perspective. Between medicine and dentistry, and just in general, I've always viewed, and I think many of us view the oral cavity as the window to the world, so to speak. It not only is where the teeth lie and the periodontal disease lies, but it's also a window in that many diseases that systemic diseases manifest themselves initially through the oral cavity. So with that said, through my background, we'll talk about that after, but I've been through a lot of different iterations in my career of wearing lots of different hats. And what led up to starting the Global Health Impact Fund and Network, we're basically creating a place where health professionals could play an active role in this evolving digital health revolution from an investor perspective, an advisor, and a consultant. So with that said, I started out as a dentist, but I've been a practicing anesthesiologist as a physician for the last 35 years, and also a serial entrepreneur. And creating the network was a way to kind of tie that all together for our colleagues, because we're all very, very busy, especially post-pandemic. And for clinicians to educate themselves and become actively participating in the digital health revolution is not very easy unless there's a safe, trusted place where they can accomplish that on their time schedule. So that was the background behind creating the medical side of it. And the natural fit was to create a venture fund of health professionals that could actively participate in the investment side and actually choosing what we believe are the early stage market disruptive companies. So we did that 7 years ago, and over that time, it was repetitively mentioned to me as the CEO and founder from all of my dental colleagues, how come you're not doing something like this in dentistry? And I said, I'd love to do that. And the culmination was about a year ago, we decided to venture into the oral health side of things. And I was introduced to Jeremy, and clearly Revere Partners had a very prominent place in the oral health innovation space as investors and advisors. So we connected, and together with all the resources between Revere Partners and Global Health Impact Network, we decided together to create this new environment as a partnership in oral health. When it comes to oral health, you can see, I mean, it's on the slide here. I don't have to actually repeat it, but it's a very important first mile in the care of all patients. And that's the premise that we're taking as we venture into the oral health subvertical within healthcare. I guess next slide.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Really appreciate that and agree. We are two organizations well aligned to work together. Revere has historically focused more on oral companies with oral health applications, but as the world around us changes and as healthcare professionals unite, as they push further and further into synergies as science comes out and shows us the connections between oral health and the rest of the body. We start at Revere, we started envisioning the mouth again as part of the body, right? The body as containing the mouth. And so that brought us closer to the wonderful work that GHIN&F have done with healthcare professionals at large, the multidisciplinary approach that they take, looking at multiple different sub-healthcare verticals. And we thought, what a great environment, what a great network and community to really build further the next chapter of oral health. So we're really two leading networks or communities coming together. We are two funds, coming together to form a joint venture fund. We are, in addition to that, really healthcare professionals at large. So the combination of our two groups represents that cross-functional, cross-disciplinary focus across oral and systemic health. We'll be looking at companies ranging from seed to Series B. We like to sometimes say an average of Series A, but these are in general early stage companies that have most often multiple applications across oral and systemic health, but definitely anchored on having those oral health applications, which has the specific value add or benefit, especially on the GHIN&F side of giving healthcare professionals exposure, not just clinical exposure, but business or financial exposure to the oral health segment, and bringing those technologies and opportunities closer, perhaps as we trek day by day to their clinical practice. So I'll introduce myself and my partner Dave, and then turn it over to Gary and Sheetal for their introductions. I really come from two backgrounds. There is a clinical academic part of me. I'm a licensed dentist. I practiced for about 10 years, and scaled and sold some practices. I chair the board of a dental school, and hold some committee positions within the American Dental and Massachusetts Dental Society. But I also come from the startup world. I started in tech, having nothing to do with healthcare at all, had some exits there in web and graphic design, luxury goods and commodity services, and an incubator that I built. And then went into health tech. I spent time at Oscar Health Insurance, leading strategic provider innovations and development, hospital system partnerships, Athena and technology, Epic integrations, and some special projects on the federal risk adjustment and telehealth, teledoc services side. After that, I went to Quip, the subscription electric toothbrush, oral health product, and professional services company, and scaled the professional channel there. Oscar IPO'd, Quip became a VC-backed unicorn, and then I went into this world of dental investing. Dave, my partner and CFO, is from Bridgewater. He spent a little over a decade there, across multiple departments, including everything from research to capital formation. Dave then went to another 10 years or so in different startups, startups in dentistry, startups in healthcare, startups in other spaces like food and beverage and real estate. He's had 2 IPOs under his belt. I'll turn it over to our partners, Gary and Sheetal.
Great. So again, Gary Goldman. As you can see, I've had numerous pivots in my career. I started out as a dentist. And one of the reasons I actually went into dentistry was because back in the 60s, the late 60s, my dentist was an innovator. As a matter of fact, that company still exists today, Elman Dental Products, and Innovation Products. So that's how my career started. And then I evolved to become a dental anesthesiologist where, we had 3 offices in Philadelphia, which were practicing, addressing patients who were fearful of the dentist, as well as those who were medically compromised. And that led to me going back to med school, getting my MD, and then doing a full residency and a couple of fellowships in anesthesiology. I originally, you probably hear from my accent, are from the East Coast, but we moved out to the Bay Area in 1989, right around the time that the web bubble was building here in Silicon Valley. I live in Northern California, in the Bay Area, and I joined a practice which was part of the Sutter healthcare system, or evolved into being part of the Sutter healthcare system with 27 hospitals, and basically. went into practice, but at the same time had some ideas that could be leveraged on this internet. Wound up getting a great mentor who was at the time president of Maxtor, the hard drive maker, and had some ideas. And one of them, was in the space of continuing medical education, and wound up writing a business plan and putting a team together and going out and raising from my health professional colleagues close to $3 million back in 1991, and started my first company. Fast forward, I've had a serial entrepreneur. I've had 3 digital healthcare companies, all of which have had one way, shape, or form an exit. And during that time, also, Sutter was implementing the electronic healthcare record Epic. So I became part of that consultative informaticist team, and we built and implemented Epic in 27 hospitals. That led to me being a consultant around the country and working with some of the major HCOs across the country, helping them build out anesthesia and perioperative services, my specialty, and the greater Epic product. And it was quite obvious that everywhere that I went at the elbow, working with other informaticists, that pretty much everyone seemed to be disenfranchised. They weren't exactly in love with Epic when it first came out. It was quite obvious that a lot of the technology that was coming out in this evolving digital health revolution did not represent the clinical or the clinician input. And part of the problem is that access to those clinicians was very difficult for any early stage startups. So that's when I decided that it was, instead of starting a 4th company, creating a Global Health Impact Network and funds, a place where, as I said earlier, clinicians could easily, on their own timeline, educate themselves about innovation, identify the different opportunities from an investment perspective through the venture fund, and then working with the companies post-investment to escalate them, to work with them to get them through their milestones from a capitalization perspective, but as well as helping with business development and with development of their technology platforms, and ultimately commercialization and exits. So we've been doing that now for 7 years, and that's evolved now, as I pointed out, from medicine into both medicine and dentistry in partnership with Revere Partners and Jeremy's team. Along the way, Sheetal, who's about to speak, there's clearly in everything that we do, and a very important aspect of it, which is the financial aspect. And Sheetal came to us and is the CFO for our whole organization, as well as a general partner in our funds. Sheetal, take it from here.
Thank you, Gary. So my background is I have an undergrad in microbiology from India, and I also did my first MBA over there. I started my career in biotech and pharmaceuticals in India. I was in sales and marketing, brand manager for insulin brands and erythropoietin brands back in India for the emerging markets. The markets that we were operating were Latin America, Africa, and Middle East. So I was in that profile for almost 4 to 5 years, after which I made a switch to corporate finance. My last company that I worked with before moving to US was Cipla Pharmaceuticals. It's one of the top 5 companies in India, which has a very significant international presence. My projects were primarily based in Middle East, where we were doing a lot of M&A activity in Dubai, in Oman, Yemen, even Iran for that matter back then. So I was based in Middle East for 4 to 5 years, after which I decided to make a transition to US. The transition to US was through Stanford. I was a part of Stanford community for almost 3 years in the business school, as well as the public policy, graduating the infamous class of 2020. Immediately after that, it made complete sense for me to be a part of venture capital, especially focused on healthcare. Given my experience for so many years in pharmaceuticals and in corporate finance, this was the next step. So as Gary mentioned, I'm the general partner and CFO for all our group of entities. We have 2 funds, C Corp, and now this is our 3rd fund that we are starting in collaboration with Jeremy.
Thanks so much, Gary and Sheetal. Always a pleasure to be working with both of you. I'm going to talk a little bit about Revere's edge, our competitive advantage. One thing that We have done very, very well. It's become, and I'm proud to say this, the really brand name for oral healthcare early stage technology companies. They organically apply to us for funding, which is a great thing to see. They organically apply to us for next rounds of funding and keep us updated. We see about 3 new applications per day of the year. We've diligenced now over 1,500 different oral health technology companies. So we do not have to really go outbound to find these companies. We do not have to scrape them. We do not have to pay marketing costs for them. We have them flowing in. It shows the demand for these types of technologies and the help that they need, both in terms of capital flow, but also in terms of being able to work with a network, being able to work on scale and exiting with the right strategic investors. So that bleeds into the next category, which is the expertise that we provide them, and we do this as a function of our portfolio management or portfolio success, not just the diligence process, right? To mirror what Sheetal and Gary were saying in the diligence process, one thing that's super unique is how we leverage our network, right? We have an industry team, venture partners and advisors, over 117 advisors, 5 venture partners who partake in the diligence process, and they have to agree with the internal management team, the head of our investments, our analysts. They have to be in alignment for deals to pass to primary diligence, secondary diligence, or our investment committee. After investing on a special set of strategic terms, we then move into this portfolio management area where we implement our expertise. We do that in ways like some of those special investment terms. For example, we have board presence with these companies. We're placing somebody strategic there who is also trained on the resources that we're providing. We're getting financial reporting. We're getting pro rata investment rights. We're able to really help the company based on some of the investment rights. But in addition, we're leveraging the internal resources that we've built. So some of those include helping the company fundraise through multiple modalities, right? Yes, our fund, but there's also other funds that we both have. There's also a large list of institutional co-investors. We run syndicates as well. There's multiple modalities where we can help these companies at their risky stage of fundraising. In addition, if they have regulatory needs or help getting through clinical trials, we have internal resources, external partnerships to help them through that. If they're looking for vendor services, we have some 75 vendors that are free or highly discounted to help them specifically with those that have reach to the dental industry. For those looking to scale, we like to see channel partnerships. So we work very closely with the corporates, the manufacturers, distributors, insurers, DSOs, professional associations, labs, so on, in dental, in a very close sort of client services capacity, so that we're able to help leverage their expertise for not only our own investment purposes, but helping to scale these companies. And ultimately, when they look to exit to a corporate strategic, exit to a private equity fund, we're helping them internally position and get ready, have that discipline in their process and materials, but also be able to have that relationship on the other side of the fence with the potential acquirer. So we're really implementing our expertise. Lastly, and I kind of alluded, something very differentiated about Revere is this ecosystem approach. Most people know Revere historically for the funds. We've had 2 previous funds, a third fund in addition to Wisdom Partners, right? So most people know us for that. But in addition to that, we have had these corporate services where we're working with the corporates. We've had our syndicate called Revere Plus. We've had our Revere Plus for pros. It's sort of a fund administration layer that helps other funds as well. These things all contribute to the success of Wisdom Innovation Partners because we're able to bring these ecosystem partners together, right? I'll sort of give you 2 phrases that we say a lot internally, right? One of them is a rising tide floats all boats. Like, we believe that by bringing these additional sources of capital, these additional areas of expertise, right, along to the level of demand that there is among the companies, right, that we're actually bringing more companies in and higher quality deals, that we're able to generate higher quality results, right? And the other one, right, it sort of takes a village. Right, every company needs more than one investor. They need multiple sources of capital. They need multiple, channel partnerships, and so on. And so we're there to provide each of those differentiated areas of resource, and have done really a good job in the oral healthcare space with a successful track record of doing so.
Thanks, Jeremy. Sorry, I was muted. So I'll talk a little bit about GHIN&F. I'll try not to be repetitive. And you can see there's a huge amount of synergy between what Revere Partners and Jeremy's team have done and what we've done parallel on these different verticals. So again, given the background that I talked about, we've evolved over the last 7.5 years to have over 2,000 global clinicians as part of our health professional network who act in many different capacities, as I pointed out, but the workflow starts at the early idea generation. There are plenty of organizations that are out there that are working with clinicians, mostly or a lot physicians who are entrepreneurs, whereas we took the approach to be more agnostic and representative across all health professionals in terms of democratizing the concept. And each one of our individual, a small percentage of our members are investors, only because with the SEC, you can only have 99 to 249 investors, depending on how much money you have in a fund, whereas we have thousands of clinicians. So hence the reason to expand the finance or the investment investment side of the operation with respect to giving opportunities to our clinicians. But each one of those individuals helps from due diligence all the way through commercialization and exit in a very targeted, specific way, depending on what their subject matter expertise is. When it comes to once we do go through the due diligence process, which is extensive on our secure proprietary platform, we then take that area within our network. We call it a community, and the community then takes a permanent place within our global network, and we work with the company directly, again, as I mentioned, to reach their milestones every step of the way by leveraging all of the resources we have within our network. And our platform through the network has over 350 communities, which are both profession and specialty specific, but they're also very specific to different areas of innovation, blockchain, AI, VR, and specific to the different specialties and professions. And then also we have communities specific to the needs of the portfolio companies with respect to all the different milestones that they have to reach. And we're constantly growing that and adding to that. And then we become a real trusted support system as almost a member of the team for the founders within our network. We have more than just our portfolio companies. We also work with companies to escalate them as well. And when appropriate, a different funding vehicle can step in and assist them from a capitalization perspective. And then we provide, as we say, the validation for the product ideas and making the necessary introductions, depending on who the customer and the client is, and then leveraging the clinicians and the hospitals within our network and the different corporate resources.
Thanks, Gary. So we'll talk a little bit about our track records. And again, look, past performance is not a guarantee of future success. It's a standard disclosure we always make. But I do think it's important to consider, who it is that you're partnering with, who it is that you're investing in as a piece of your consideration to get further involved. So some of our track record and winners, I'll give you kind of a snapshot, and then also some of these examples. So Revere to date has invested in 45 different companies across its 2 funds over the last 5 to 6 years. We've had 4 public exits, and we're working on 3 more now, so seven total. And Revere's internal rate of return on a markup basis is 28.5%. That places Revere in terms of performance in the upper quartile, and on some of its metrics, the upper decile of performance at this stage in the firm. Some of our highest performers, PureLogic, which is an AI communications platform for dental practices, sort of like an AI co-pilot, conversational intelligence at the front desk, sitting on patient conversations with your front desk and helping improve the performance of those. We have about a 15x markup from getting involved in the seed stage and about 150% year-over-year growth. Toothio is a staffing platform, huge opportunity and pain point in dental continuously. This one is on demand. It has a unique sort of matching algorithm. We've seen a 3x markup in Series A, Q4. 2024, and about 34% growth quarter over quarter, way exceeding the average, 20% that we target. And then Two-Front, an example of a company helping general dentists do more complicated orthodontic treatment, but with an orthodontist and the company Align, Invisalign in the loop. And so we've seen about 185% year-over-year growth, and they're currently raising their Series A. There are countless other examples of this, and other high performers in Revere's portfolio. It's not just some of them driving the numbers. Company Uptime Health would be another. Even has many systemic health kind of links, as well as a company Augmented. Revere is about 35% global in its investments. AR, that's an AR surgical planning and guidance platform. We just saw 4x on the last round. So multiple drivers kind of to the performance that we've had to date, and so many exciting opportunities to partner with healthcare professionals. Gary, Sheetal.
When it comes to Global Health Impact Fund, we started our first fund in 2019. Our thesis is that we invest in digital health, telemedicine, and even medical devices, which have a data management software associated with them. So far, we've invested in 11 companies and had 2 exits. The first one being Somnoware. This was a company in the area of sleep apnea management. That it was acquired by ResMed for the 3.3x exit in 2023. Another exit, which is actually not listed here, but it's more recent, is UberDoc, a company specializing in concierge medicine, but it has been pivoting towards providing support for insurance. And this company was acquired by ROV Investment Group in Canada, and they are right now preparing for their first public listing. So we would have we'd have update anytime soon regarding the public listing going live. And we can hope for another listing in the US markets sometime later this year. The 2 other potential companies that we have invested in is Elucid and Radiant Oximetry. Elucid is in the area, it's a platform which is in the space of cardiovascular imaging using AI. We invested in this company at a very early stage, in seed stage back in 2019. Right now, they have already raised their Series C, and the valuation has gone up by 5x. Their Series D will be going live in another month or 2, and we expect the valuation to cross 8 to 9x at that point. Radiant Oximetry is one of our major investments. We have, as a matter of fact, Gary himself had invested in this company as an individual investor before we even set up the fund. This company operates in the area of maternal and fetal health. We had invested back in 2019. That was in pre-seed. They have been amazing at achieving their milestones. They're still pre-commercialization and accelerating very fast towards FDA approvals. With their recent partnership with GE Healthcare, we are looking at exit sometime pretty soon, in another year and a half. So we have actually been very constant and have done follow-on investments in these companies. So we, as a matter of fact, when we set up Fund 2, GHIF 2, the aim was also to expand and have a bigger, larger fund so we can expand our breadth of investments, but also to support our existing portfolio with follow-on investments. And clearly, that's a strategy that has worked very well for us. Deep diving into a bit of the investment opportunity with Wisdom Innovation Partners. So Revere and GHIF are coming together to set up this fund, which we're targeting this to be a 25 million fund with a first close of 5 million. The terms are pretty standard, with 2% management fee, 20% GP carried interest. The investment period, we'd focus heavily in the first 3 years, and the deployment period will have an overlap with the investment period that we expect for the next 4 years. It is a standard 8-year fund with 2-year extensions if and when they are needed. Our focus, so with this fund, we are hoping our checks would be anywhere between 300 to 400,000, going up to 2 to 3 million, depending on what stage the company is. If it's a seed stage, and also what the requirements are. Seed stage, it will probably be a smaller check size. When is it Series B, the investment usually goes significantly higher. As we have mentioned before, the focus of this fund is completely in oral medicine. So the strength, we're planning to bring in the strength of Revere Partners, their experience in this space, as well as the strength of our network, and bring them together and focus on this particular segment. There are not many funds that focus in the area of oral medicine. As a matter of fact, Revere is probably one of the very few ones, and there are very few funds which also have such a high focus on healthcare with a clinician base of more than 2,000 clinicians. So that is where we wanted to focus so much on oral medicine to bring in our strengths, because our network has a lot of oral medicine specialists. Our geographic distribution, we'll be focusing primarily on US markets. That will be our main 70% of our investments will be in US. But we also aim to go more international than our individual previous funds towards Europe, Asia, and MENA regions. We have already started with the outreach in these zones. I would open the platform now for questions from the audience. Yeah. I don't think we have questions as of now. So we'll proceed with the next set of our presentation. We can still handle questions towards the end of the session. So for our next presentation, we would have Stephen Johnson from Decon7.
Great, thank you. I'll pull up my slide here. Here's a second. All right, hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, I'm Steve Johnson with Decon7, and I'm going to quickly go through a little background of myself, and I have my two colleagues as well, Matt Jackson and Ira, and we will be going through a presentation on Decon7. My background is multiple companies. I've been very, very active in healthcare for the last 20 years, and have done over 6 public offerings with the various companies that I've started and been with. So I have a very good background in public investment and public opportunities. We have exited most of the companies I've invested in, and in excess of $1.2 billion in sales. So I've been at some fairly large projects and had a lot of good success with that. Quickly, if I could, Matt Jackson will give his intro and he'll introduce Ira, but we're going to go through this very quickly. We don't have a lot of time. I know you're all busy. So Matt, you can introduce yourself quickly.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, Matt Jackson. I'm the president and chief operating officer at Decon7. Been at the company for about 6 years. Been involved with the company since it was founded. Started my career as an attorney in California. Moved my family to Texas to become general counsel of a healthcare technology company, and from there moved into this operational role at Decon7. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ira.
Hi, my name is Ira Copeland. I am the Vice President of Marketing for Decon7. A little bit different background than Steve and Matt. I have spent 35 years in the industrial sector, selling to large industrial companies, both from a wholesale and a retail perspective, customers like Home Depot, Lowe's, Grainger's, things like that. Brought that expertise over to Decon7, where we are building out a similar portfolio.
All right, thanks, Ira. Of course, we have a safe harbor disclosure statement. A little bit about Decon7. The technology really began by a group called Sandia Labs, who does quasi-government work. There's millions of dollars invested. I'll get in that to a second, but that's where the original formula for Decon7 came from. And of course, it was used in Operation Freedom. The FBI, the CIA uses it to neutralize things such as meth labs, fentanyl, things of this nature. We went into a couple areas very early in the company's history, went into defense and public safety, where we were doing turnout gear for firefighters, and food and biosecurity, which was primarily going to companies. We had a great customer list. Dole, JBI, Tyson, Cargill, Butterball, Foster Foods. Pretty much everybody in the processing industry was using Decon7. We sold that division profitably, made a little bit of money off of that, and did that primarily to focus on two new areas, which was an HVAC launch, and of course into healthcare, which is we're just getting into now. Food and beverage, at the high point, the company was doing about 12 million a year in annual revenue, and lower margins and a longer sales cycle than what we're seeing in what we are seeing in HVAC and what we anticipate in dentistry and healthcare. So that's a little background on us. The chemistry is fantastic. There was over $40 million invested in the early development. We've put in over 30 million since that time. We have 89 issued patents, about 115 trademarks and patents, either issued or pending. So a very robust IP portfolio that protects our technology. So we have a branded and a well-known product that we can go into dentistry and has some great advantages. Behind the technology, primarily it is a hydrogen peroxide-based formula. There's really three parts, if you will, that go into this. You mix the three parts together to make it active, and it has about a 48-hour shelf life before it loses some of its efficacy. But it is a complex formula of 1-quat and various other chemistries, along with hydrogen peroxide, and then we use a booster. So we maintain a 7.99% hydrogen peroxide in one of the parts that is shipped. That way we're below hazmat, so we can ship this to dentist office all over the United States, hospitals, wherever it needs to go without going through hazmat. So it's a fantastic formula. It has a log 6 kill ratio, and I know we all see so much of these commercials about Lysol and so forth, kills 99.9% of pathogens. We kill 99.99999% of all bacteria and pathogens. So a tremendously better, a near sterile environment when you're done with this. If you treat either through fogging, spraying, wiping, or foaming a surface, you're going to get a near sterile environment when it's done. So it's a fantastic disinfectant. It's regulated by the EPA. We have been authorized in multiple countries. I think we're in 28 countries where we went through certification. We spent over $8 million just on EPA licensing, testing, and so forth to get through it. Just recently went into the HVAC market, and we really are making a big change there in how we affect homes. And this also ties into the dentist office and hospitals, because with our product, we're EPA certified to be able to fog the product into the HVAC system and kill all the pathogens within the air, which is really something fairly new. Lysol has came out with a product that kills 99.9% in an air application. We're, again, log 6. So a much, much better product, much more of a commercial application. We sell primarily in the HVAC market right now to the residential units. We're going into commercial. And of course, that's already being taken care of because we've just finalizing a distribution agreement with a company called Mars. And Mars is a huge distributor in the HVAC business. They presently have distributors in over 10,000 storefronts in the US and Canada. The average buy-in of a distributor is about $2,000. So quick math, you can see with 10,000 distributors coming online, there's some tremendous growth in HVAC. And it really opens up our management group to pay attention to dental and hospital markets, because Mars is going to handle 100% of our sales. Like I said, 10,000 locations with 76 reps on the street really gives us a strong entry into HVAC without really having to develop that vertical ourselves with personnel and so forth. Great strategic partnership with them. I'm going to go quickly through this. We'll go to the next slide. This is what we will do with just Mars in the HVAC market. This is our projections for the rest of the year, about 2 million. The year after that, about 8.6. The beauty of this chemistry is you can use it in so many applications. For example, marina, plumbing, dentistry, hospitals, of course, are great application for it. But because it's a disinfectant, it's used everywhere you look. Future market expansion. This is where we're the thrust of the company is to go into what we've already worked on in the dental market first. We have been working with a company called Henry Schein. A lot of you are probably very familiar with them. They're fairly large. They're about a 12.6 billion annual revenue group. They're in 32 countries. We went through a pretty elaborate vetting situation with them. They had 28 competitors looking at a new disinfectant to be used in the dental market. We were selected out of those 28 as having the best efficacy and use, so we were working with them. We have already went through what they call their VOC, which is the voice of the customer, where we've actually put this in several dentist offices, got feedback, and really tried to identify how to go to market with this product in the most efficient way for the dental market. We also have a pretty good background. As I say, I've been in healthcare for over 20 years. And I have been working with a lot of the GPOs like Health Trust, which is HCA's group, Vinset, Premier, Panda. So I'm very well versed and have business relationships with all of these GPOs. So our go-to-market strategy is going to be Henry Schein and some direct to the dental market. And then for the hospital market, it'll be primarily through the GPOs for our path into the marketplace. So trying to do that very quickly. I know we don't have a lot of time, but again, we have a great background. We have a great product, which is something that would lead itself to, a public offering. I've done 6 or 7 public offerings in my life. They have all worked out very well. Of course, our roadmap is when the revenues get high enough, we would look to a public exit. And when I say a public exit, primarily get the company into the public markets, which allows the liquidity to our investment groups, as well as acquisition. I've done a lot of acquisitions in my life, and this is a great product to go out and acquire growth, not only organically, but through acquisitions. So that's a little bit about the company. And if we have any questions, I'll open it up right now. So.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
I don't see any questions as of now from the audience. Perhaps we can move on to the next part of our presentation. That would be for Proteocyte. Mark?
Well, so it's quite a bit if I take myself off mute. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on your geography. Appreciate the organizers for inviting us today. I'm here to talk a little bit about Proteocyte AI. I want to dedicate most of our time about Proteocyte and our product Stratocyte, but 30 seconds on myself as CEO of Proteocyte. I've been in healthcare since a child, 35 plus years. Spent more than the last decade primarily focused in genomics and proteomics. I worked for a variety of companies in the space successfully, companies like Myriad Genetics, Exact Science, Garden Health, others work with Tempus, what have you. So this is an area that's been passionate to me, a lot of success in this area, and I'm thrilled to be part of Proteocyte for the last 4+ years. Whoops, sorry, that wasn't presentation mode. I don't know what happened. There we go. So yeah, Proteocyte. So Proteocyte has been a company around for the last 10+ years. They've developed and now commercialized their first product called Stratocyte, product in the oral cancer space, a prognostic tool to identify patients at risk of developing oral cancer. I'm pretty sure I don't have to tell most of this group the impact that oral cancer has, significantly high mortality rate. That and pancreatic are probably 2 biggest killers over a 5-year period. And really, that's the problem. But primarily, most of these oral precancerous lesions are very common. About 5 to 10%, depending on your data source, go on to progress to squamous cell cancer. The biggest challenge is they're primarily diagnosed at late stage, and at that stage, it's often fatal. So significant challenge, significant impact, both morbidity and mortality, and really been a focus for us. There's been really no new innovation until this product came along in probably 40 years. We've developed a Stratocyte test. It's a laboratory-developed test. It's a personalized signature-based proteomic cancer prediction assay for oral cancer. It's extensively validated with our most recent data set. Sensitivity is up over 98%. It's a test using AI-driven software that takes a look at the stain slide, looks at intensity of stain, dispersion of the stain, looks at a number of cytomorphic features. The outputs from that goes into our weighted algorithm that provides the Stratocyte risk score report to our clinician, either putting patients at low risk or at risk. Obviously, at low risk, they should have a high level of confidence with that level of sensitivity that they're not to develop oral cancer. But certainly for those that have identified at risk, an appropriate plan needs to be put in place. So if you think about what Straticyte does and sort of the current standard of care, as you see in the slide, I apologize, a little busy. Someone comes in with this lesion. They go on to have the lesion biopsied, primarily by oral surgeons, oral medicine doctors. Biopsy sent off to a path lab, not always, but mostly an oral path lab. And they get back a highly subjective report that's qualitative in nature and often not really particularly indicative of risk for the patient. So you think where the value of Straticyte test comes in, so using the same tissue biopsy, so no additional biopsies are required. If it's not cancer or scar tissue or viral, then opportune time to have the Straticyte test ordered. The test requisition comes into the company. We work with a local path lab to have a couple additional slides cut for us. It comes to our lab. We apply the proprietary stain. We digitize it. We upload it. We put it through our AI software. The outputs from that comes in and comes the basis of our algorithm. And as I mentioned a minute ago, generates our Straticyte risk score. So, as I said a minute ago, high level of confidence and peace of mind for those folks really at low risk, but certainly those identified at risk. There's awareness. The whole idea is catch them early, treat them early. Outcomes are greatly improved, and the cost to the system reduces greatly. As I mentioned, we're a commercialized company. Again, slightly busy slide. The green dots are really the oral maxillofacial surgery programs across the country. The U.S. has been our primary focus. Early days with limited boots on the ground, we focused on those institutions, particularly across the South. As you see in the map, most of the high incidence of dysplasia, OPMD, oral cancers across the South, we focused there and had very successful early uptake. We're in about 15 programs across the US, 5 in Canada, and we're in the process of onboarding another programs as well to augment sort of the beachhead we've developed for Straticyte in the US market. On the reimbursement, which we all know is so important in the US market, we've now submitted to a number of the large plans for both Medicare, Medicaid patients, private plan practices. We're in negotiation with several of these as our tests come in. And we're currently approved by United Healthcare for Medicare and Medicaid elder patients and their managed care patients. And we're currently receiving about $3,000 a test through United Healthcare for those covered. As you see in the bottom, we're also working for a lot of the Medicare, Medicaid patients across the United States. Our sales are growing. It's just a snapshot to show they're growing, a snapshot between Medicare, Medicaid, private plan, and cash payers. Particularly in the back of growing reimbursement, we're starting to see some significant uptake through May and even early days in June. We continue to have incremental sales, not just in the existing programs, but we're adding new programs as each week goes by to really augment our overall revenue strategy. Outside of North America, we haven't given up on the rest of the world. We've got an engagement strategy outside. We're focusing in large cash pay markets with willingness to pay, high incidence. We start with Turkey. Hungary will be next. We have an agreement out for Australia. And on the back of Australia, they're also looking to represent us across Southeast Asia, which is a huge market for the oral cancer space. So lots of interest and uptake. These are cash pay markets. We've got a cash pay price that resonates, high gross margins for our test. And this is really part of the strategy, bring it early, augment our early revenue stream as well to allow us to do more, expand our field force in the U.S. All this, of course, is backed by our clinical evidence. We've spent a lot of time and significant investment around not only the S100A7 protein biomarker as an appropriate biomarker in the oral medicine, oral cancer space, discovery, verification, analytical validation, what have you, but also on the clinical side. More importantly, does this change outcome? Do we catch patients early? Does it have an impact early and an impact on downstream costs? We've had a couple of publications over the last 6 months. We expect another one before the end of summer. Again, all these are peer-reviewed publications that speak to the value and the clinical utility of the Straticyte test. So very, very exciting time, and it continues to grow. We have requests for additional data sets to be analyzed and reported out. We're currently working with MD Anderson, Harvard in the US, a couple of different data sets to augment the growing list of clinical value we currently have. I think that comes to my last slide, which is not coming up. You know how to get a hold of us through the team. Our raise is really to put more boots on the ground across the U.S. to go deeper in our existing centers where we've started got uptake, as well as moving to some of those other centers across the U.S., Canada, and continue to flush out our partnerships across the big regions, which high incidence cancer and a high willingness to pay. Thank you all very much for your attention. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mark. I believe we have some questions. Okay, I think, Michael, if I'm not mistaken, I believe all these questions are for Mark. So one is, what is the percentage of accuracy? I think this was during your presentation.
Oh yeah, so our sensitivity our sensitivity is now, and the most recent data set is now over 98%. I think it's 98.6. Our NPV approach is about the same. It's about the same, 98 and change, almost 99. Actually, we have a recent data set that showed our NPV is actually 100 in just over 120 patients. So yeah, high level of sensitivity. And again, as this is not a screening tool, it's a prognostic tool, our focus has been on maximizing sensitivity, as many of the others has. You think the others in space, EndoPredict, Oncotype, Veracyte, the Affirma test, they've all focused primarily on the sensitivity, given that we're avoiding, identifying patients that will develop and also identifying those that won't.
And just a couple of other questions. That is, have you spoken to the FDA whether it's a 510(k) device, and how do you compare it to other devices?
That's another great question. So as I mentioned briefly, we run this as an advanced ADLT, advanced diagnostic laboratory test. And as such, it can be run in a clear CAP-approved lab, as many of these others are. So in comparison, as I said a minute ago, we compare ourselves to like the EndoPredict, MammoPrint in the breast space, the Affirma test in thyroid. So these are all run very successfully as advanced diagnostic laboratory tests. Our data sets actually are quite consistent across the board with other tests that are highly accepted and used every day. So the data really does line up well. The question relative to FDA, we've not, so many tests that have gone on to an FDA are what I call the kit strategy, where you sell your enzymes, reagents to local labs. Most companies don't go there in the early days. The challenge when you do that is you lose access to your data. So as with any AI-driven test, software, what have you, you want to have ownership relative to your data until you get to the point where you've just run so many samples, the data is not going to change. And we're just not at that point yet. So we have a long-term workflow that incorporates developing a kit strategy, submitting to the FDA, but that's not really a requirement today. As I said a couple times, as a laboratory developed test, we've got regulatory approval in Canada, United States for for CLIA. We've got ISO 15189 in Canada. We focus on that in the other markets as well. Has not been an inhibitor at all. And actually, it follows along other very successful tests. Most of these others I mentioned have all done exactly this. Start off as ADLT, got thousands and thousands and thousands of samples in. Once they were confident that their algorithm wouldn't change with more data, then they submit to the FDA and move to the kit strategy, changes price points, can be run in local labs. That's part of our workflow. It's just not our workflow for today.
Thanks, Mark. Nick, I believe you have raised your hand. In case you have a question, you might have to type it in because we probably will not be able to hear you.
Into the Q&A section.
Yeah, in the Q&A section. I'll just get in a next question from Ed Zuckerberg. Tell me about the clinical laboratory partners that perform your test around the US.
Hi, Ed. Nice to see you. So we've centralized our lab partners. Again, you centralize a lab partner to make sure that you're getting access to your data on a regular basis. So we have a partner in Dallas, Texas, that takes the samples, runs the proprietary S100A7 staining. They upload it to image. So we do that currently in our lab in Dallas, Texas. We have a lab here in Canada, and we're about to open up a second centralized lab in the Northeast in conjunction with Harvard to just really manage what we expect to be volumes in workflow. Hopefully that answered your question, Ed.
Thanks, Mark. And then we have a couple of questions from Bruce Leberthal. What is the specificity, and is this an LDT?
So yes, Bruce, yes, it is an LDT. Specificity is over 90. Oh, sorry. Yes, specificity. Sensitivity is over 98. Specificity is mid-20s.
Thank you.
Again, very consistent with all the other proteomics that are used quite regularly.
We have one more question from Michael Yontov. What is the timeline for your discussion with FDA?
That's a great question. So if I look at the track record of other successful proteomic genomics tests, we're a couple of years out. Going into kit strategy, I mean, we want to make sure as we continue product development that we own and have access to our data, and that's ideally done through a centralized lab. So our FDA strategy is probably a couple of years out.
Thank you. And Nick Hyde's question, what is cost to patients who don't have United Healthcare? If low risk result is a recommendation to retest in 6 to 12 months?
So another great question. So our current list price is $3,000 US. We've got an early patient assistance program, so maximum out of pocket is $500.
Sheetal, I have just a quick question. Hi, this is Gary. So taking off my clinician hat and putting on my venture capital hat, when I look at this, I mean, clearly this could be applicable in other areas outside of just oral medicine. First that comes to mind is dermatology. So are you thinking as part of the scalability of your solution to potentially move into other markets?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, the time I had it didn't go beyond that. Yeah, so one of the things we've done is we've brought, our AI, AR algorithm, our AI infrastructure in-house. And what that does, it allows us to start going from a product to a platform company. And so, yeah, we're actually looking at a number of different areas. We're starting to look at esophageal, Barrett's esophageal cancer, cervical cancer, other cancers of the skin where S100 as a protein plays a role. But the beauty of the AI software we've developed is you can move across disease states very easily with this. So yeah, while Stratasite is the first test we brought to market, on the back of additional funding, I mean, we've put the infrastructure in place to start evaluating other biomarkers, not just in oral medicine, oral health, but in other areas as well.
Great. Thank you. Sheetal, I just want to say one thing. So as far as, this particular event, I just want everyone to understand that, we do have the Global Health Impact Network platform, and each one of these companies will have a community on there where after this event, if there are questions, interested questions about investments or just about the company itself, if you join our network, you'll be able to access that, and we'll make that available, from an information perspective to everybody who's attended.
Thanks. Thank you, Gary. We'd also like to open the platform for questions for Decon7 team, or for me, or for Gary or Jeremy.
Sheetal, I'll just add, this is Jeremy. If we don't have any additional questions on the Wisdom Innovation Partner side, if there is interest in the thesis or in the approach that we're taking, we welcome follow-up conversations that we can have independently with each one of you and dive into deeper detail. So please do reach out to myself or to Gary or to Sheetal, and we'll follow up with conversations on Wisdom Innovation Partners.
We do have one question from Michael. How much do we want to raise? That will be 25 million is the target of the fund, but the first close is 5 million. We do not have any other open questions as of now. I think we're almost at the top of the hour, so we can close the webinar. And anyways, we'll all be in touch. We'll send out an outreach to everyone who has attended with the details and the recording of the webinar, and even for those who couldn't attend. And we invite you all to have a conversation with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.